Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah waliy salihin. Wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu khatam al-anbiya'i wal mursaleen. Allahumma salli wa sallam ala abdika wa rasulika Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Wa ba'd. All praise are due to Allah, Lord of the worlds. And surely Allah is the friend and protector of the righteous. And I bear witness that Allah is one and has no partners, and that Muhammad, the son of Abdullah, is his servant and his last messenger. May Allah always and constantly send peace and blessings to Muhammad, to his family, to his companions, to all those who call to his way and establish his sunnah to the day of judgment. My beloved brothers and sisters, I begin with the greeting words of the righteous. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, it is a great privilege to be with you today. And I pray that Allah Azza wa Jal would bless the students here in New Jersey, at Rutgers. May Allah bless you in this community. It is a thriving community, and there is great potential in this part of the country. Especially when there are so many younger people here today. It is your generation that will live in the future, and you will have the responsibility to continue the message and the lifestyle established by your parents and ultimately established through the last Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. This is a very unique time that we are in as Muslims. And for one who studies history and the cycle of events and the relationship of people one to another, it is one of the strange points where major changes come about in our nation. These changes come about through a type of contradiction. It's like contradictions. You have up and down, you have hot and cold, and when you see in the atmosphere when the hot and cold meet, you will see an explosion, or you'll see a change. Moisture will come. And so in our nation as well, we have reached one of these very critical points. And that is based on the fact that Muslims today make up over 26% of the Earth's population. There are millions of Muslims in China. It is the majority religion on the African continent. The largest Muslim nations are not in the Middle East, but in Southeast Asia. Islam is also still rising, and there are so many Muslims in Europe and the Americas that you will be surprised to know that there are people entering into Islam in many parts of the world. Recent studies were done to show that even in Europe, where there's so much tension, as you know, in France and in places like this, the reality on the ground is actually different than what you might read in the media. Because in France today, in Paris and Marseille, 45% of people 25 years and under are Muslims. In Holland and Belgium, 50% of the children born in hospitals are Muslims. 30% of the German population. Also in far-off places like Poland, Sweden, Greece, Norway, Finland, there are people entering into Islam. Deep south, in southern Africa, the Khoisan people, the Aboriginal people of the south, are entering into this faith. Far in the north, in Canada, in the northern territories, the Inuit people, wrongly called Eskimos, in the northeast corner, are embracing Islam, and a masjid is coming up in the city called Iqaluit. And go back to your geography again, and see the province of Nunavut, which is probably the largest province or state in the whole of North America. In that area, the Inuits are embracing Islam. And so we are a growing community, despite negativity that we see on the surface. We are actually one of the fastest growing entities or communities in the human family. We also have extremely powerful resources. Over 50% of the mineral resources of the world lie under our countries. Our countries are in strategic positions, strategic waterways, strategic mountain passes, strategic deserts. You may have heard of the struggle recently going on in Mali. This was in West Africa, when the French entered into Mali. And you'll be surprised to know that under the ground of Mali is one of the largest uranium deposits in the world. Somalia, you hear about Somalia and the Somali pirates and the struggles that are going on. Somalia has the largest coastline in Africa. Somalia also has minerals. They say that the oil off the coast of Somalia may be more than in Saudi Arabia. And so, right across the board, there are resources. We have young people. 60% of our nation are actually under 25 years old. You are the majority of the Muslims. We have a long history of civilization and progress. It was in the dark ages of Europe that our scientists led the world. The scientific method. When you count, you're counting in Arabic numerals. 0 is sifa in Arabic. It's an Arabic construct that was taken from the ancient Indians, ancient Egyptians, and it was modernized by the Muslims and put into a system that ultimately is being used by the whole of the world. Alchemy, and so forth and so on. You go through all the different areas and you'll see that when the energy of the Muslims was put in a positive way, using the sources of the Quran, using the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, when it's in a positive way, we actually led humanity in a positive direction, building civilization, developing the first modern hospitals, developing psychiatric wards, developing universities. We're leading the world. And so we have a strong, powerful history, and something which we should not be ashamed of. We also have some of the richest individuals on the face of the planet Earth. Enormous wealth. But at the same time, there's contradictions. This is where this struggle comes in. Because with the great wealth, we also have some of the poorest people in the world. With the great armies and great technologies and numbers we have, we are also feeling a type of frustration. And so it is at this point, this struggle that goes on between the opposites, riches, poverty, great history of progress in academia, but yet now disputes going on amongst the ulama, amongst the scholars. It's at that point, this is where the change comes about. And this is sunnatullah. It is the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sunnatullah, that cataclysmic events come about, and then we see a major change in the ummah, or the nation of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. We cry for change at this point. There are some who are crying for political change, some for economic change. Others want social change. Some people just want halal food. But they want to change, something different to happen. And the ultimate source for us, when we see a dilemma like this, right? The Muslim world, it's like a Lamborghini. You know, and it's at the beginning of the race, and everybody's looking at it. And then, you know, when the race begins, it looks good, but it's not going anywhere. There's something wrong in it. It's a type of maybe kryptonite that is a danger for Superman. Something that debilitates the body. That although on the outside Superman may have a powerful build and supposedly the ability, but when the kryptonite touches him, from the inside he gets weak. He's not able to carry out the great tasks that he has been created for. What is the kryptonite? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in Surah Ar-Ra'd, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. Allah will not change the condition of a people until they change that which is in themselves. This is the key. This is the kryptonite. No change is going to come about until the change happens, or we change in the anfus, anfusihim, their selves. And anfus is the plural of nafs, and the nafs is the self. So this issue we are talking about today is probably one of the most important issues facing the Muslim Ummah on this planet right now. Because all of our potential is there. All of the abilities to make great progress is there. But something is happening on the inside. When the scholars look at this concept of nafs, they look at the human being as a physical creature. We have a physical side to us that walks and talks and sleeps and moves in society and builds and destroys. But then we also have an invisible side. You could call it a spiritual side, and that is the nafs. The nafs could be defined as the self, or the ego, or the psyche, like the psychology of how we look at things. Also, it's used as the person himself or herself, or it can be used as life. It could stand for lives, your lives. And strangely enough, it's also interchangeable. In some cases, it's interchangeable with the word al-qalb, which is the heart, and also with al-ruh, which is the soul, and al-aql, which is the mind. So this is the internal power that is fueling our bodies. What is inside of us? What really makes us as a human being, and not just clay, not just a physical structure. What is it that separates us from animals and can raise us to the highest level, or it can take us to the lowest level? This is the nafs. And this issue is a crucial issue. Many of the great ulama look into this to try to give us some advice as to what is the nafs. Basically, the nafs could be divided into three parts. And these three parts, or even three versions, they are three states that the nafs can be in. And they're interchangeable. Sometimes one will appear, the other times another might take over, and ultimately there is a goal that we are seeking for the final one. The first is called an-nafs al-amara bis-su. And this is the self which commands you to do evil. You could say it's like your bad side. And it's commanding you to do evil. Some people even hear voices in their head. It's promptings that come inside, from the inside, not the outside, which is leading you toward evil things. And in the story of Yusuf, alayhi salam, the prophet Joseph, who was exceedingly handsome man, and when he came into the possession of the great leaders of Egypt, the Pharaoh, and then there was the wife of Aziz, Zuleika, and she couldn't control herself, and she tried to tempt him. Ultimately, he was put in jail and he was released after a period of time. But she actually confessed about a weakness she had in herself. And in Surah to Yusuf 50, verse 53, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has enshrined these words that say, وَمَا أُبَرِّئُ نَفْسِي إِنَّ النَّفْسَ لَأَمَّارَةٌ بِالسُّوءِ إِلَّا مَا رَحِمَ رَبِّي إِنَّ رَبِّي غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. And so she said, and I do not declare myself innocent, because surely the human soul, or the human self, is capable of commanding to evil, except for those who my Lord has mercy on. Verily my Lord is oft forgiving and most merciful. And so she mentions it here, in the nafsa la'ammaratun bisu, that the self can actually push you into evil things unless Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mercy upon you. The second type of soul is an-nafs al-lawama. An-nafs al-lawama, and that is the nafs that is always, questioning things. It will blame the individual for going wrong. It will accuse you of doing wrong. It watches over you. When you start to do something, it makes you question. And some people actually hear voices in their mind. They hear voices. And it's mentioned in the Quran, in Surah Al-Qiyamah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, وَلَا أُقْسِمُ بِالنَّفْسِ اللَّوَّامَةِ. Nay, I swear by the self-accusing soul. One of the great scholars of Islam, Hassan al-Basri, said, you'll always see the believing person blaming himself and saying things like, did I want this? What did I get out of this? Was this the best thing for me? In other words, there's a side of ourself, there's the evil side that inclines toward the evil. Right? Pornography pops up on the cell phone. Right? One side it goes toward it. Right? This is your weak side. Right? The kryptonite is coming in. But then there's another strong side. You say, is it right? Should you be involved in this? Should you be drinking and smoking on Friday night? It's Saturday. What should you do on Saturday? Okay, that's the internal struggle that people are going through. And this is the struggle of the nafs. And this struggle is a critical one for the Muslim world. Because remember, Allah Azza wa Jal is saying that no change will come about. Allah will not change the condition of a people until they change their nafs. They have to do something with their inner self. They have to conquer their inner self. The third soul, or the third self, which is mentioned in the Quran that the scholars basically divide the nafs into, is a nafs al-mutma'inna. And Allah tells us in Surah Al-Fajr, Ya ayyatuha nafs al-mutma'inna irji'i ila rabbiki radiyatan mardiya fadkhuli fi ibadi wadkhuli jannati. Then Allah says to the soul, this is the soul which is at peace, in tranquility. A nafsul mutma'inna. So it says, oh nafsul mutma'inna, this is the soul now that has conquered the lower side. It has conquered the lower side. And now it's in a state of peace. And so Allah said, irji'i ila rabbiki, to return to your Lord. That you will be well pleased, Allah is pleased with you. Enter into paradise. Right? Enter with my servants. Right? This is an ultimate goal for the soul. And so this is the struggle that is going on between the individual. And the nafsul mutma'inna, and this is where the change comes about. A nafsul mutma'inna is content. That is the person who is content with the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are content with their knowledge of the attributes of Allah. That Allah has names and descriptions for things that are going on. They are content with what is happening around them. If they have great success, they are not overcome with this. They're not rejoicing because they have great success. It is the will of Allah. They accept it. They feel good about themselves, but they don't lose control. If something negative happens to them, they don't fall into despair because they recognize that this is the will of Allah. And so this nafs, which is multidimensional, which goes through different changes, right? And this nafsul amara bisu, right? This evil side, this is the kryptonite. And the nafsul amara bisu, it brings us into evil through certain qualities. And these qualities could be called the diseases of the self. They're also interchangeable with diseases of the heart. And one of the great scholars, Ibn al-Qayyim, mentions to us some of them. I want to bring you some of these diseases. And these are practical things that we all need to work on. We all want change to come about. But how can we begin to make this change? Of these, there are 7 that we mention here. Number 1 is pride. And that is kibr, it is the pride. I'm proud of my color. I'm proud of my language. I'm proud of my family. I'm proud of the money that I have. Some foolish people are even proud of their passport. but their cousins live right over the border on the other side. So they think they're better than them because they have a different passport. Like, pride is usually something which is a physical thing. Okay, and pride is a dangerous thing because it leads to takabbur, which is like arrogance. When you start hurting people with your eyes, insulting, knocking people out the way. And pride is so dangerous. I mean, this is what brought Shaitan down. Because Shaitan, remember at the beginning of time when Allah said, bow down to Adam, you know, Shaitan said, no. You made him from clay, you made me from fire. So he was like the first racist in the world. He refused to accept Adam. He's made from mud. He jumps up and falls down, he gets tired and goes to sleep. I'm jinni, made from fire, right? I can move and change states, right? So just by the creation of Adam, he refuses to accept him and the pride comes in. And this is a dangerous thing that we need to try to struggle against. We struggle with it, number one, theoretically, knowing that we are weak, and ultimately, no matter how beautiful you are, or how rich you are, you will ultimately return to the earth. And when you go down there, nobody's going down there with you. I don't care how much money you have. So what are we actually proud of? But there's some physical things that we can do. We humble ourselves. We involve ourselves in struggle and activities. The Prophet ﷺ in the Battle of the Trench, he didn't stand in the back. He went to the trench when 10,000 of the Confederates were attacking the city, and he was digging it with his own hands. He was suffering like his companions were suffering. I remember one of my friends, he said they took a group to India, actually, and they were searching for a great scholar of hadith. And they went to a house, and they said the scholar lives here, and they sat down in the majlis, and an elderly man came out and gave them water, and they washed, and then brought them food. And afterwards, they said, okay, where's the sheikh? And then 10 minutes later, the same man came out, now with a turban on. He said, I am the sheikh. You see what he did? He killed his nafs. If he had any arrogance and pride in him, he was like a slave to them first. And then he took his position as a great scholar of hadith. So pride is a terrible thing which divides us. It can cause tribalism, racism, and it's a whole study in itself. Number two, there is greed. And that is ashuh. And greed, we can see, wanting material things, wanting more and more and more. And it never ends. And we see now, greed is a problem in society because the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. It's really one of the main problems in the world today. This whole environmental issue, when they just met in Lima, Peru, the real reason why the developed countries are not supporting underdeveloped countries is because they have to get up off their wealth. It's an economic thing. It's not a moral issue. So greed is a terrible thing, and this is a test on us. Because we have some people who are very poor, but some who are extremely rich. Some who are so rich, they don't know what to do with their money. Number three, al-hasad. This is jealousy. This is a dangerous disease of the self. You're jealous. He has a new car. She has a new baby. And you see the new baby and you just feel like, you know, something evil coming up. Ali pulls up in the new Lamborghini. So now what do you think about Ali? Okay, some people look at it. If you want one like his, that's okay. But if you want one and you hate to see him in it, see that evil thing? That's hasad. So you say something, look how ugly the color is. His tires are flat. You know, like hasad comes out of it, right? It's a wicked thing. And it actually destroys the hasid, the person with it, more than the mahsud. More than the object of it. The person gets destroyed. They're never satisfied. And jealousy on our lower level has divided up our communities. It breaks up families and ultimately even breaks up nations. Number four, lust, shahwa. And this lust is now being used against us as a fitna, a temptation. It's coming on the television, the media, you know, the sexuality, you know, erotica, which is being used now and to take people off the path, to change the relationship of people one to another. And the Prophet ﷺ said, إِذَا لَمْ تَسْتَحِي فَاصْنَعْ مَا شِئْتَ. If you don't have haya, if you don't have modesty, then do what you want to do. In other words, you're capable of doing anything. So shahwa is one of the main tools of the devil to take us off the path and to ultimately halt us from gaining the change that we need from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number 5, backbiting. Scandalization of individuals. And this backbiting, talking about people, saying things and their negative qualities, right? This negativity is like a cancer which can spread throughout the community rapidly. Number 7, these are key ones brought by the scholars, but there are others. But number 7 is hatred. It's a hiqd. It's just this hatred, evil, which comes in the hearts. And you see some people will do things today in the world. We'll see people who will do things not because of seeking the pleasure of Allah, but they do things for revenge. They do things for revenge. We are not vigilantes. We don't burn people alive and kill people like this. This is not Islam. It has nothing to do with our faith. And the Prophet ﷺ said, only Allah is the one who punishes with fire. This is Jahannam. And so, but revenge, right? Anger, this evil cancer inside, these are part of the qualities inside of us as individuals. And a good example of this, amongst the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, let's look for some living example. One of the best examples that I can think of right away is Mus'ab ibn Umair radiallahu anhu. And Mus'ab was raised in Mecca in a rich family. Khundas ibn Malik was his mother. She was one of the richest women in Mecca, and she spoiled her son, as we say. She pampered him, and she gave him everything. And so he had the best clothes, he had the nicest perfume. He's like what you call today a fashion statement, right? He walks out Brad Pitt or whatever. He comes out wearing certain clothes, and his hair is long, or it's sticking up like a lizard, whatever it is, whatever style he has. Everybody wants their hair like that. It's like a fashion statement, right? That's what Mus'ab was. He'd walk in the streets and look to see, what is his shoes like? What is his top like? And that's what we do today. Are the pants bell bottoms? Are they tight on our ankles? And then we follow the fashion statements. So Mus'ab was like this. He was also very intelligent, to the point where the Quraysh put him inside of their congress, the Nadwa, because they liked him. He's an intelligent young man. So he sat with the leaders, and he was listening to like major events happening in the Arabian Peninsula. So he was a well-informed, famous young man. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guided him, his heart opened up, because he heard about this message. Remember, he's in the Congress. He's in the Nadwa, the key parliament of the Quraysh. So he heard about this man, Muhammad, who is teaching this belief in one God and taking them from idols, no difference in an Arab and a non-Arab. This is a strange type of belief. But Allah opened his heart. He wanted this. And he accepted Islam. And when he accepted Islam, he hid his faith from his mother for a period of time. But one of the companions named Uthman ibn Talha, who eventually became a Muslim, he saw him going to a meeting with Muslims. And he told the mother. So the mother was angry. And she locked him down. He was a spoiled boy, right? Still. So what's the worst thing that you can do to a boy who's used to getting his money and his clothes? Lock him down. You're going nowhere. She put him in house arrest. He escaped, went on the hijrah to Ethiopia, came back when he thought things had changed in Mecca, and then the mother did the most dangerous thing that a pampering mother could do. She cut him off and kicked him out. And he was what we call today homeless. He was a homeless person. Just imagine, from being the fashion statement of the town to being a homeless person. And he came into Dar al-Arqam where the Muslims were, and the companions saw him, and they cried. The Prophet ﷺ wept. when he saw the sacrifice that Musab had made for this faith. Ego, remember what the nafs is, right? It's your ego, pride, myself, I'm the best, I'm number one, right? He took over this, okay? And he was able to control himself, come into the faith, and the Prophet ﷺ saw in him great qualities. So he made him the ambassador to Medina, the first one to go to Yathrib to give dawah. And Musab, because he had good qualities, remember he's intelligent, he's a communicator, he knows people very well. So now his good qualities in ignorance, Jahiliyyah, is good qualities in Islam. So he becomes a perfect ambassador. And he goes tirelessly through Yathrib, giving the call to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is reported over 500 people took Shahada at his hands. Over 500 people entered into Islam at the hands of Musab ibn Umair radiallahu anhu. And he continued as the great ambassador. Eventually, in the Battle of Uhud, he was martyred. He gave his life when the Quraysh was attacking the Medina. He held the flag of Islam, and he became one of the shuhada, the martyrs of Uhud, who was one of the best martyrs with Sayyidina Hamza radiallahu anhu. And that's Musab ibn Umair, one of the great example of a person who controlled himself. He started off very high materially. He left it, and now he's on the highest part of paradise. I want to leave you with a few practical points in the end. One of the great scholars of West Africa, Sheikh Uthman Danfodio of the Sahara region, of the Great Sahara Desert. Great ulama who they captured the spirit of the Prophet ﷺ through their knowledge and their striving. He gave us some practical points. This is something that we can do as our little homework and think about our communities, something to bring about that change. He said, number one, purify your income. Make sure that what you bring in is halal, that you're not involved in interest and usury and stealing in any way. Purify your income. This is very practical advice. You want to clean yourself. Two, diminish the amount of food and drink that you eat, so you're not controlled by your desires. And this is what Ramadan helps us all, because we know how to control ourselves through Ramadan. Number three, keep the company of righteous and good people. The more you are around righteous people and good people, it's going to help you, it's going to reflect on you. If you're around people who don't make salat, when it's time to make asr, you got a problem here. You got to sort of slip away and then come back again. Oh, where were you? Well, I was just around the corner. Try to be around good people who remind you to do good things. Number four, never forget the danger of wealth and position. Never forget, if you get a lot of money, you're under a test. Are you going to pay zakat? Are you going to give to the refugees, in Syria, and in Bangladesh, and in Bosnia, or in Africa, or wherever? Are you going to give? Or do you hold it to yourself? You're president now. Are you going to look down on people? See, these are the tests. Number five, criticize yourself regularly. Criticize yourself. Say, how can I improve myself? What am I doing wrong? And how can I improve? Right? That's the way you move to a higher stage. And number six, continually ask forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, istighfar. Constantly ask Allah to forgive you. And constantly, as much as you possibly can, send peace and blessings to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because this is something the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Man salla alayya wahda, sallallahu alayhi biha ashara." Whoever sends peace and blessings to me once, then Allah will send it back to him 10 times. And this is what the ummah needs today. This is the change that we need inside of ourselves. To deal with our egos, to deal with our self, to make that impact which will help our persons and our lives, and eventually it will go to our hearts. And eventually, inshallah, it will bring about that ultimate change that Allah enshrined to us and informed us very clearly. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُوا مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. Allah will not change the condition of a people until they change that which is in themselves. May Allah help us, this ummah, to change ourselves in this very critical point. I leave you with these thoughts, and I ask Allah to have mercy on me and you. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.